Happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome back to LWN Network and Headline Hits every weekday, Monday through Thursday at noon Eastern Standard Time with me, your host, Tammy Nation. We love to cover the headlines and what's popping in the news each and every day at noon for you guys. And boy, we have it packed and loaded today as well. We have no shortage of news, no shortage of things and shenanigans going out there in the world. So welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. If you get a chance on your way out, if you haven't already, please go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. We sure do appreciate it and your support. So welcome, everyone. Let's go ahead and get started on the headlines for today, Wednesday, March 19th, 2025. First up, former Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger. Remember his name? He appeared on CNN's The Lead, hosted by Jake Tapper, and he stated boldly that he would crush President Donald J. Trump in court if the Justice Department brought charges against him for his work on the January 6th committee. Yep, Adam was on the January 6th committee. Adam said he welcomed a legal battle with President Trump over the House Select Committee that investigated the January 6th incident after Trump stated the preventive and preemptive pardons that Biden issued before leaving office were null and void. Host Jake Tapper said, "You were pardoned. You didn't ask for a pardon. It was preemptive just in case Trump's Justice Department goes after you and other members of the January 6th committee." What was your reaction when you saw Trump post last night declaring your preemptive pardon void and vacant? Well, Kinzinger replied, "Well, at first off, I'm trying to figure out what he's trying to distract from, because that's all that is always about, distraction, to try and target people's attention and get the attention in the direction that he wants. Or maybe he hasn't felt like he's gotten enough attention. But look, Jake, it's like, bring it on. Like, honestly, so you know, we had an election. I fought against Trump. I wanted Kamala Harris to win. January 6th was a big thing, but the Americans made a big difference and a big choice. Fine, I'm ready to move on, even though I don't agree with it. I'm like, look, we made it very clear what happened on January 6th. America made a decision." He added, "There is one person that's obsessed about the 6th, January 6th, because he is still basically deemed guilty in the court of public opinion, and that's Donald J. Trump, and he can't handle it." Adam went on to say he is obsessed about it, relating to Donald J. Trump. So my reaction to him is like, you know what? Then bring it. Stop talking about it. Stop being all verbose. Stop pretending like you're tough. Bring the charges then if you really want to do it, because we will crush you in court. You guys, I'm not even comfortable repeating what Adam had to say about Donald J. Trump and the J6 and all that's going on, because to me, those are fighting words. And that, to me, that's my opinion, that this man is totally guilty. And, you know, you should know better than to come out against Trump on that. So I found that very interesting today. I thought I'd share it with you guys. And next up, we have the big deal of the night last night. The JFK files were released late yesterday after a delay, as the DOJ decided to have lawyers look over about 400 to 500 pages of documents each before the public release due to security and other concerns. But many of the documents have been released before, but now the full and completed files, roughly about 80,000 pages, are out. Some of them that I looked through personally were kind of illegible, the handwriting pages. But as we continue to scour, and I scoured a little bit more through those pages, here are some findings so far that are being reported and that I have found. Number one, the JFK files reveal CIA's extensive global operations, listing 34 secret field bases across Africa, Europe, Asia, and Latin America. Number two, a man claiming to be a Polish driver for a Russian vehicle warning of Soviet plans to pay someone in the U.S. to assassinate the president. Next up, the CIA was intercepting U.S. postal mail service sent to the USSR and had 300 CIA members indexing 250,000 names. That's a lot of names. A letter addressed to then Senator Joe Biden, accused of him being a traitor. Yep, there was a letter in there. If you haven't seen it yet, Senator Joe Biden called a traitor. The letter was signed by none other than John F. Kennedy Jr. Next up, J. Edgar Hoover was asked whether Lee Harvey Oswald was an FBI agent and if there was a conspiracy to assassinate JFK. And then Lee Harvey Oswald was allegedly under the direction of the KGB officer Kostifov, reportedly linked to Department V. Department V is a Soviet assassin. So, mere hours after Jack Ruby also shot and killed Lee Harvey Oswald, FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover urgently called for a swift public report to prevent conspiracy theories from gaining traction. And that did not go so well. All these years later, we've seen so many movies, documentaries, opinions, theories, so that did not work. And then lastly, a day after JFK was assassinated, Gary Underhill, who was a CIA agent, claimed that the CIA was indeed responsible. And then less than 6 months later, Gary was found shot to death in his apartment. And obviously, they said it was ruled a suicide. So those are some of the findings that we have found that are out there today. I know there's plenty more to scour through, and we're hoping to find out more. We've been waiting a very long time for this, but 80,000 pages, that's a lot to go through. I know there's like a new section of new releases, but there's a lot of pages in that as well. So next up, we have Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. He is asking for another $2.8 billion loan to keep Medi-Cal, the state's Medicaid plan, afloat after asking for $3.44 billion last week to cover a program that has expanded to include, guess who? Illegal aliens for free. Started January 1st of 24, illegal aliens residing in California became eligible for taxpayer, you and me, our money, funded health insurance, the first state in the nation to enact such a policy. Newsom had boasted at the time, with these new investments, California will become the first state to achieve universal access to health care coverage. Remember, we talked about that the universal health care coverage is what they want to bring here into the United States. But Breitbart News noted last week the cost of adding illegal aliens to the program has caused it to run out of cash. You think? Forcing California to borrow $3.44 billion to cover a shortfall in that program. And other blue states, too, are finding out that adding illegal migrants to Medicaid program is destroying them. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker is trying to cut illegal aliens aged 42 to 64 out of that plan as his state faces a huge budget deficit. So a short time into these no programs, we're seeing that they are devastating to the states that are implementing them. And my suggestion and my thing is, how about making programs to help U.S. citizens who struggle with their medical bills, prescriptions, and have no insurance at all? So these programs be put in place by Gavin Newsom, not working so well. And once again, putting illegals ahead of we, the people of the United States of America. Next up, we have yesterday, Supreme Court Chief Justice Roberts defended the rogue district judge James Boasberg and slammed Trump for calling impeachment against judges. Earlier in the day, President Trump called for Judge James Boasberg to be impeached after he ordered planes deporting criminal Venezuelan aliens to turn around and bring back the murderers and rapists back to the United States, as we had reported. Interesting side note to Judge Boasberg, he has a daughter who works with criminal illegal aliens. Go figure that. Now, there's been stories almost daily about rogue judges going against President Donald J. Trump's decision with deporting illegals. Yesterday, the Trump administration, DOJ, filed a response in federal court to the ACLU filing that we talked about yesterday, deportations of Venezuelan TDA members to El Salvador, and is calling for today's hearing to be vacated, stating that the plaintiffs cannot use these proceedings to interfere with the president's national security and foreign affairs authority, and the court lacks jurisdiction to do so. The court should vacate the hearing and de-escalate the grave incursions on executive branch authority that have already arisen, the Trump administration also saying they compelled with the order by not removing the 5 plaintiffs, that the judge's verbal order was not legally binding. So it was a verbal order he put out there. They say that only the written order, which they say they complied with. So they did comply with the written order. So we see the judges have been trying to blockade President Donald J. Trump from deporting these criminal gang members and illegals. And you have to ask yourself why. Well, Border Czar Tom Homan spoke yesterday regarding these judges' warrants and to stop deporting these illegals. And to paraphrase what he had to say yesterday, he said, every single day, ICE is going to be in neighborhoods, taking away the dangerous criminals, destroying our neighborhoods, and bringing violent threats onto our citizens, violent threats and harms, basically stating that they are going to continue to do what the President of the United States asked them to do. The president did appear with Fox's Laura Ingraham last night for an interview and stated removing criminals is a presidential job, not for a local judge to decide. Amen to that. Then last night, Fox News host Greg Gutfeld went off on Chief Justice Roberts for his outrageous public comments attacking the President of the United States and defending the radical Obama judge who ordered the U.S. president to fly those criminals, rapists, and murderers back into the United States. What Greg had to say in part said, look, John Roberts says it's not appropriate. It is not an appropriate response when you disagree with the judge. It is really a surprise to me that Trump doesn't follow the appropriate protocol when there are rapists and murderers invading our country. And he said maybe a guy in a robe in D.C. can follow all the protocols, but Trump is the effing president of the United States who protects 300 million plus people. He is a leader who does not have the luxury of opening up his little books to read, oh my God, maybe he didn't do it the right way. Roberts, shut the F up. There is something that a president has to do. This is Greg Gutfeld. They were strong words, but he really has some good points. And a lot of these judges, as we've seen over the days and weeks, are making ridiculous calls and decisions that are pro the gang member illegals and the keeping them here, and they're anti-U.S. citizens. And once again, you have to ask yourself why. Why are all these judges wanting to keep them here and not wanting us to be safe by deporting them? Next up, President Donald J. Trump announced the appointment of several conservative leaders to military boards, in case you missed this story, which probably was buried with all the news we have out there. But the president said, I am pleased to announce a new board of visitors for our nation's oldest military academy, West Point. A couple of the more familiar names include General Mike Flynn and Steve Bannon's daughter, Maureen Bannon. He said they will make our country proud. Congratulations to all. Appointments to the Naval Academy included former Trump administration leader Sean Spicer, and then Turning Point USA's Charlie Kirk was named among several leaders to the Air Force Academy Board. And then continuing on about the Department of Veteran Affairs, on Monday, they announced that it will phase out sex change drugs for transgender identifying veterans. Doug Collins, the VA secretary, said in a statement, I mean no disrespect to anyone, but VA should not be focused on helping veterans attempting to change their sex. The vast majority of veterans and Americans agree, and that is why this is the right decision. All eligible veterans, including trans-identified veterans, will always be welcome at VA and will always receive the benefits and services they've earned under the law. But if veterans want to attempt to change their sex, they can do it on their own dime. And that makes sense to me. Next up, the president did release a statement after his phone call with Putin. President Trump, my phone conversation today with President Putin of Russia was a very good and productive one. We agreed to an immediate ceasefire on all energy and infrastructure with an understanding that we will be working quickly to have a complete ceasefire and ultimately an end to this very horrible war between Russia and Ukraine. This war would have never started if I were president, and many elements of a contract for peace were discussed, including the fact that thousands of soldiers are being killed, and both President Putin and President Zelensky would like to see it end. He said that process now is in full force and effect, and we will hopefully, for the sake of humanity, get the job done. And following through with that, he's staying busy. Breaking this morning, just a little bit ago before I went on air, the Trump administration did block $175 million in federal funding to the University of Pennsylvania for continuing to allow men and women's sports. He warned everyone about this, that this is a no-go, and if you choose to follow it, the funding is going to be yanked. And also, Dan Scavino President Trump's deputy chief of staff posted just a few moments ago, President Trump is now in the Oval Office. He's on a call with President Zelensky of Ukraine. So let's see and hope that there's some good news after this call that is going to happen. So positive with Putin. Now he's in the call with Zelensky. And later today, I'm sure when that call is over, we're going to get some more information. Also, ending on a positive note, you guys, astronauts Barry Butch Whitmore and Sonny Williams landed safely off the coast of Florida in a SpaceX capsule after spending 10 months in the space station. They were greeted. It was very cute. If you saw the video, some dolphins were swimming around that capsule upon landing. And what better way to be greeted back home again safely than by some dolphins in the ocean? Elon Musk spoke with Fox Hannity, Sean Hannity, and he said that he did, and he verified, offer to return the astronauts a lot sooner. But get this, go figure. He was turned down by the Biden administration. Why? For political reasons. And that is just a fact, he stated. He said they were only supposed to be there for 8 days, and they were there for 10 months. So once again, the Biden administration failed our astronauts. They failed to get help from Elon Musk. Elon Musk showed that it could be done. They were brought home safe. Hallelujah to that. And you know what? The news media didn't cover it very much. They didn't make a big deal out of it. But I think they should have. It was a very big story. And these poor astronauts were out there for 10 months instead of 8 days. They're ignoring the fact that the Biden administration just kind of left them out there. And thank you to Elon Musk for bringing them home safely. I'm sure their friends and families were very happy about that. So that's what we have. And I'm going to give you a final thought for today before I get out of here. When we look at all the things going on in the world about the left and how they're against certain things now, do you remember all of them wanted us to drive electric cars? They wanted us to eliminate the fuel-driven cars. Now, they pressed that on us. They were putting in efforts and try to get legislature passed and just to be able to make us no gas-driven, no diesel-driven, no fuel-driven cars. They wanted us to drive electric cars. Now, later, that Elon is working with Donald J. Trump and the American people, they all hate the maker of those electric cars. What an oxymoron is that? They hate the man who is making the very cars they told us that and insisted that we had to drive to save the world for many different reasons. So I find irony in that, don't you? That's what I have, you guys, for Headline Hits this Wednesday, March 19th, 2024, or 2025. Don't take us back to 2024, Tammy. So thanks once again for joining me so much, you guys. I'll be back tomorrow at noon Eastern Standard Time with another Headline Hits here on the LWN Network. Thanks for joining me. Once again, hit that like, share, and subscribe button on your way out, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.